So, Anna, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what it is you're actually doing there?
Sure, Gary. So I help brilliant high achievers to moderate their drinking. I help them to drink less, drink rarely, or even not at all. And I do this because this is one of the things I find that people with very put together lives, they find this is the one thing that they struggle with that they can't control. And I show them how to use some techniques so that they can do that and then go ahead and live their life without worrying about this anymore.
Yeah, it's like drink for me is kind of a weird one because I'm going through a chaotic time at the moment. And I've noticed that I've started to wander into buying more bottles of wine, and I can't really afford them, to be honest. And do you think I'm heading for a problem here?
The way I look at this is if we aren't getting the results in our life that we like, then that's a problem, right? And that's a problem then that we can do something about. And I don't say it's a problem in the sense of, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is really heavy judgment. You need to go to AA. You have to stop drinking immediately, which is, in my experience, what happens when people put their hand up about needing help. But yeah, if you're not getting the results that you like, I think it's time to take stock and then decide what you want to do about it. And that all starts with deciding what your end state is,
Right.
right? I really encourage you to look at what is possible, right? Because we often think, oh my gosh, this is just, or how am I going to do this? And there's many ways we can do this, but to start with it being possible and then working back from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things I found that actually I was noticing the next day, I was slowing down a bit and didn't have energy. Are there other things we need to look out for?
I think there's that. And I think it's just actually the mind drama. It's all the negotiation. That was certainly the case for me as I wake up in the morning. I'm okay. This is what I'm going to do. And it's, should I? Shouldn't I? Am I going to have one? Am I going to have two? Do I have enough wine? Do I need to go and get some more wine? Or if I'm going out with friends, is it too early to call the waiter over? Am I drinking too much? I'm not sure. My friend Sarah's drinking. All of this just takes up so much room. And I have to say to people, do a little category, an inventory of all of this time, all of these thoughts, and then just imagine if you could take all of that and then take it out of your head and all that time you get back.
Hmm.
And is that what you want? So that's one of the main things to look out for. And I think just how you feel about yourself. Right. This is another thing. We have huge judgment. I mean, one of the things I used to say, and I hear people say, my clients say all the time is, I'm really capable. I mean, I have a really good job, or I have a whole family together. I do all of these things. And why can't I just drink 2 glasses of wine and not have the bottle?
Yeah.
Right. We just
But
start to question everything.
or how long, how much is too much in a sense?
Yeah. And so when we talk about that, I mean, this is such an interesting one because when it gets to alcohol, there are some people who say anything is too much. I'm certainly not of that opinion because I just don't think it helps.
Yeah, I found that
That's the main reason.
in the counseling world, and clinicians, because they're kind of replacing doctors at the moment, and they're saying, oh, virtually saying, well, you shouldn't drink at all, in a sense.
And again, maybe even if that were true, let's just say that that's factually true. I don't find it helps because everybody I speak to said, look, Anna, I know I shouldn't be drinking this much. I mean, nobody needs to tell me that I'm way over. And then when we look and we compare, we think, oh my gosh, and I'm a really bad person. And then that just makes us feel bad. And guess what that does, Gary? It makes us drink more because we're feeling really bad. And here's the other thing. I work with people all around the world. And all the different governments have all the different guidelines. I work with the Moderation Management Group, which, by the way, is fantastic. If anybody's out there, take a look at their stuff. And they have their guidelines. And I've spoken to people who say, but I can't even, and they're really doable. And even I can't do that. And so what does that mean? So I think if we look at the guidelines and we have good thoughts about it, if it's constructive and think that's something to aim for, and that's great. If you look at them and think, holy moly, what does that mean? Don't go there, is what I would say. And I would say just look at let's start with what makes you feel good. What would you like to attain, and then work towards it.
Mm.
because again, drinking at its heart is to make us feel good. And if we're thinking about something that is meant to help us and we just feel bad, it's,
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
Because technically it's not meant to be good for us, is it? In a way, and but I tend to have a behavioural thing, where if the sun comes out, which is very rare these days, I'll sit outside, with a glass of wine, but I know that the second glass is that's it. I don't go beyond the second glass, so somehow I'm able to do that. But are there such things as personalities that can't do that in a way?
Well, again, this is another fraught topic, really, because as you get into addicts and the way I like to look at it is I keep it very simple. If somebody has a real physical dependency where we will get the shakes and the tremors and everything, where they are drinking alcohol in order to function, to get through the day, that is one thing that is very much for the medical profession, go that way. But I think for other people, so much of this is how we're thinking about it, right? We just get a cut. It's a habit. It's a habitual condition response. So you talk about a nice summer's day. I hear this all the time. And think about the language we use. So you talk about a nice, cold, crisp glass of Chablis, right? That sounds really appealing when actually all it is a glass of liquid that is alcoholic. So I think, so I don't, again, I don't think it helps to think about people who have this as a personality. I don't believe there's a personality disorder. Most of the people I speak with have just got into the habit.
Yeah.
Truly, it's just like cleaning your teeth, driving to work. And I know from the people who come to me, I have clients who say, look, I'm the only heavy drinker in my family, so it's not something I inherited. I have other people who say, look, my parents were alcoholics, I've never learned. And then I work with them and they say, look, I can be around them and I'm not drinking. So again, I always look at what is going to help somebody achieve their goal. And so many of these beliefs are just things that we've thought for so long, we don't question them. And I like to question them.
Yeah. So are we looking more at like lifestyle then, really, rather than, because you're saying not to focus on the problem as such, but it's more solution based. Is that right?
I'm all about solutions. So that I'm a coach, and the difference between a coach and a therapist is simply put,
It
a
is
therapist,
different, isn't it? So
yeah, a therapist will go into your background and look at that. I actually take people from how they present, where they are. I say, where do you want to go? And I'm going to help you get there.
right.
I mean, that's really it.
Mm.
So lifestyle, yeah, I mean, what I teach is that things outside of us are circumstances. They are neutral, they just are.
Yeah.
And what we make of them, how we think about them, is what determines our action that we take and how we feel about ourselves. And this is why feelings are really important. I've already, a few times on here talking about, if we're not feeling really good about the guidelines, for instance, and we feel really frustrated and hopeless and lost, we are not going to be taking forward momentum action.
Yeah.
Right. But if we can think about this in a way that serves us, then we will. I mean, it's all about that.
Yeah. So what is a good day then for somebody that's, they've thought about, they've maybe worried about their drink, maybe they're kind of become conscious of that. What's a good day, especially like you say, if they're trying to achieve things in their life and all of that kind of thing?
So a good way to start, right? Because this is one of those things where people say, right, that's it. This is the typical thing. Tomorrow it all starts. Day one, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to do it. In my experience, that does not work over the long term. We give up. So the number one thing I think is, well, it's a couple of number ones maybe, but firstly, to believe it's possible. That's
Yeah.
not so much a step as a belief I like people to adopt, even if they have all this background and history. Just that's one thing. The number one thing is to become super, super aware and conscious. That's what I would say. That's the homework I would give to somebody. So, I like to talk about planning and intention, but even before that, I'd say just spend maybe a couple of days a week just learning about the habit. How does it show up? When do you drink? What are you thinking? How are you feeling? What's going on? If somebody says, Anna, you're going to have a drink, what's your reaction? Do you pause? Can you think? All of this stuff, because a habit runs in the unconscious mind. it just runs. I mean, literally runs as an automatic response. It's why when 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock comes, boom, that's it. I mean, for me, it was, I used to drink and cook when I was preparing a meal. And one day I was laying out the ingredients, and by the onions was a full glass of wine.
Right.
No
As you were
recollection of
cooking.
having poured it.
Yeah, as you were cooking though.
Yeah, I was pulling it. So that's what it is. So conscious is very important.
So being self-aware. I mean, dare we say the word, but mindful really of what you're doing.
It is. It is mindful. And one of the things I always think about what happens, one of the patterns I see with drinking, and it's interesting if people can see this in themselves, is what we do is we'll be switched on. Someone says, "Would you like a drink, Anna?" "Oh, yes, please. I have the drink." And it's kind of then like we just check out. We drink the drink,
Mm.
and then when it comes to an end, it's like, decision time. Am I going to have another one? "Oh, yes, please." Then we check out again. And so it's just during that process as well, just be aware. People say, "I just have, I really love the wine." Do you really love the wine? Do you even know what it tastes like? All of this. Because then once you have that information, then I would say to people, then you can start to make a plan
Mm.
to build up from there. But you need to know where you're starting.
Yeah, it does make me feel a bit better because, like I say, I've been working with therapists and things because of all that's going on in my life at the moment. Because you should always seek help, if you can't cope
Yes.
yourself, and also using all the things that I've learned to help myself, which is great,
Yes.
cathartic if you like. But yeah, because I was starting to really worry about the alcohol, but I am, only having 2 glasses when I do, and I am aware that I shouldn't have them every day, if you like. But then again, is that a problem? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, am I, as such? So it's a strange area to have to explore, if you like, because, like you're saying, we're being fed information, aren't we? That this is the strict rule, and so on and so forth.
And it's interesting what you said there, that just have the 2 glasses, but maybe I shouldn't be having it. So the word "should" for me
Yeah,
is always a flag. Is
the
like,
mother
okay,
word. It's the mother word.
right. So what's going on there? I mean, because if we are judged, maybe not. If you're totally fine, I mean, totally fine with having two, and it's like, yeah, and even if I have a bit of a hangover,
Hmm.
I'm fine with that. This is what I say. I think we're all grown
Being
adults.
responsible, really, for that, knowing what the end result is, really, the next day. If you kind of wake up to that, don't you? Well, literally.
Well, you do, and also knowing that if you want to change it, it's possible, and if you decide not to, that's okay as well. Because it's when we start judging, when
Mm.
we judge, "Oh, I shouldn't be doing this," or "I really want it," or if we really secretly want something else, but we just don't think it, that's when I think the problems come, and that's when it's like, look, just imagine if it were, paint the picture for yourself that this were possible. So for you, Gary, if you could go through with nothing or just a glass every other day, would that be exciting?
Yeah.
And test it.
I mean, my favorite actually is whiskey, but to be perfectly honest, I can't afford to buy whiskey all the time. So maybe that's my savior in that respect, because I really do like the taste of whiskey. Some people think it's medicine. It depends on the person, doesn't it, really? And going back to that, like I was saying earlier, are there people that really do need a nudge in some way or whatever?
Well, again, I mean, when we talk about, and I hear a lot, my boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife is drinking too much. And I like to say, look, you can have the conversation with them in non-judgmental way, but it really is up to people what they want. And again, I'm not into nanny state telling
Oh,
people what to do, any of that. And it's because if we want something, even if we don't believe it's possible, if we want something, then we can imagine it's possible. We start to see a different side in ourselves. And that is a magical thing, because then we are willing to do that, because it's really uncomfortable. Changing your relationship with alcohol is no picnic. I mean, it really isn't.
especially if
It's
you've got
simple,
into
but it's not easy.
yeah. Yeah, and I
So,
suppose that's what the worry is, isn't it, in your head, that you're going to suddenly become this outrageous alcoholic that can't control their life anymore, and you're lying underneath a car or something. All of those pictures that you could paint in that respect.
and again, this is part of what society teaches us. We talk about drinking. and it's if you're any kind of problem, you're an alcoholic and you need to go to AA, or it's like, stop making such a fuss, you drink less than me. That's normal. That's normal. And it again comes back to, well, how does it feel for you? What do you want from your life? And I just really, it's part of my mission, including helping people to drink less, rarely or not at all, is just to stop the shame on this.
Right.
Right? Because if people want to lose weight, stop smoking, come off drugs, all of these things, like, yeah, that's really good. And this is like you mentioned alcohol. I mean, the number of people when I moved into coaching would say, did you really have, I mean, did you have, in this sort of hushed tones? It's like, we can't talk about this. And this is a very normal thing when we understand the dopamine in alcohol, how we are not designed as humans to have this. And some people, they just have more of a reaction. If we have over desire, we over drink. And so I tackle the desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for some people, that's the case, isn't it, really? And, I suppose we've got to acknowledge that, AA and all that are doing, what they believe to be the right process and everything else. But, I've often thought, and I've been on AA groups, on the internet in the past and things like that. And it seems like it's almost become their personality, if you like, and that they can't escape that that's who they are now.
AA, people who are fans of AA and love that, great. I mean, I think it's out there and it's what a lot of people want. The reason I went into this is because I was somebody who drank too much, but I didn't want I wasn't powerless. I wasn't any of those things. I didn't want that to become my identity.
No.
And so my fear is, if you, again, this is what I see, if you don't go that way, people say, well, that's so wrong. And then that just drives people underground. And
Right.
then you feel worse than ever. And I think there's room for all of this. What I teach is not for everybody. What AA teaches isn't for everybody.
No, no. And I came into this interview thinking I was going to be the bad person, that I'm doing all these things wrong, but maybe I'm doing a little bit right or not. What do you think?
I think I think for you to decide, are you happy? It comes back to this. Are you happy with the results you're getting?
Mm.
If you aren't, and then we look at the role alcohol is playing, what would you like? I mean, really, again, back to that possibility, what is it you'd like? Would you like to be able to go out and just have the one or have none? And then what we would do is we would just reframe the role alcohol has,
Yeah.
because we are always, it's down to, we are seeking something outside of ourselves. If we overdrink, we are seeking something outside of us, because people who do not, those really annoying people, they think they'll have a glass of wine and they won't even finish it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what is going on there?
Yeah. Strangely, the other day, I was going to have a glass of wine. I actually thought, well, I don't actually want one at the moment, which I thought, well, that's kind of weird. That, because normally you think, well, if I am drinking, almost every day, that I'm going to want that next one or whatever. But it didn't seem to happen in that respect. I didn't have the urge for that, which was good. But I mean, you can look at things like smoking, can't you, and stuff like that, and that can be addictive in that sense, chemically as well. But I've spoken to people, especially women, and said to them, well, have you heard of smoker's face? And they seem to be more concerned about the looks than they do the fact that it's actually damaging part of their body. So we are a bit strange, aren't we, in that way?
All comes down to what we're looking to get out of it and how we think about it. And whatever works is really what, I mean, the reasons people come to me is all sorts of reasons. And I'm not the one to judge. I always say to people, just get really curious with yourself and figure out what it is. But the stronger the reason, the more likely we are going to be willing to do the work and follow through. Because at the moment we have all the reasons why we really want to have that drink, right? And so I say to people, it's 7 o'clock on a Friday night, you are not going to care about not being healthy.
Yeah.
You're just like, I can do that tomorrow. I'll do the health on Saturday morning. Right now, I want to have a great time. So we have to find a way for you to have a great time in the moment, that doesn't involve having the third glass of wine or, whatever it is.
It's like fitness, isn't it? At the beginning of January, and everyone, they all get on board, don't they? And then by the end of the year, I mean, memberships and these places that help you, get fit and all the rest of it, they know that only 2% of the people are going to carry on doing that in their business, so that it doesn't get overcrowded, and they wouldn't simply be able to support the membership that's meant to be coming in, if you like. So
They do that. Yeah, and that's what I like to teach in a really, this has to be a really sustainable long-term, sustainable in a good way, long-term thing. I'm not into quick fixes. I give people the tools so that they change their relationship with alcohol, and then they're able to maintain it. So even when things go wrong and they have an overdrink, because they might, because we are humans,
yeah,
we do things,
we have
that they're able to say, okay, I know what to do. I just reset and go back on. And yeah, you're right, though. People, they talk about the January the 1st, or Monday is a big one, or sober October. And then it becomes about having the streak of days rather than the learnings. And that is, again, that's not sustainable.
An alcohol perspective, that just makes you want to have some more, doesn't it, really, when you try and restrict. Whereas it's having a relationship, really, isn't it, with that, which is a positive relationship, if you like.
That's a whole other side bit I teach about how we deal with cravings, because the moment we resist and restrict ourselves, forget it. All bets are off. It is not going to last.
So there is quite a vast area that you can share with people in that respect. How do people get hold of you then if they want to make contact?
So the best way is through my website, 90dayslater.co, or they can email me, Anna, ANNA, at 90dayslater.co. And if they want a taste of me before they contact me, I have the 90 Days Later podcast, which talks about all this stuff.
Yeah, and I'll put all the details down below and everything so people can get there quickly if they're getting desperate. They think that they're on the edge, in that respect. So
yeah,
all very useful stuff, because as I said, I really did believe that I was going to come on and I was going to be the bad guy, and that I need to pull my socks up and not, a bit like when you go to school and you've got to follow the rules as such. So
yeah, I don't. If rules work for you, great. If they don't, it doesn't for so many. I think compassion is much more important.
Oh yeah, compassion's a big one, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I'm not a doctor, am I, or all of those kinds of things. And we will get people that will maybe criticize what we're saying here or whatever, and they've got every reason to do that. But we're not forcing our ideas on people, are we? Really? No.
Not at all. Not at all. I always say I'm not a doctor. And I always gauge, for people who have that, but those who work with me, this is working on them. This is a thing in the mind that we figure out. This is habit change. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I wish we had more time. Obviously we haven't. So it's been an interesting conversation, and there's probably much more to talk about, isn't there, in that respect?
There's a ton of stuff. There's sort of how you do it. People say, how do you do this? How do you do the cravings thing? It's like, okay, it's a big there one. Are some tools there.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Anna. And hopefully we'll get another subject around what we're talking about here to talk about in the future. Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been really great.
Okay. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Em.